So I'd like to welcome to our Women Making History Now series for the month of March, Ms. Cindy Bautista-Thomas. Mrs. Thomas is a licensed clinical social worker. Cindy, can you tell me a little bit more about professional titles and the work that you're currently doing?
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the roles that I play right now, I feel like I have multiple roles, is I'm a doctoral lecturer at the College of Staten Island Department of Social Work, where I teach graduate and undergraduate students in their social work program. I teach
Mhm.
clinical, micro, meso, macro classes. I am also co-founder of Velocity Visions, Inc., which is a consultancy that I started with my partner, Nancy Lewis, in 2017. So we work with individuals, groups, and organizations in providing workshops, retreats, um, training on multiple topics. Right now, we've been centering on the area of self-care, burnout prevention, compassion fatigue, social
Mhm.
emotional learning, healing centered practice. We have done also some work around diversity, equity, inclusion. And the work that we do is around, tapping into the healing so that folks can
Mhm.
have transformation to then have individual impact in their personal lives as well as in their professional lives. And so that's something that we do and have been doing consistently for the last 5 years. And another role that I play is that I'm also an author. I just I published a part of an edited text. It was edited by Erika Sandoval, Latinx in Social Work, where it's a series of narratives of social workers that have a Latinx experience. I identify as an Afro-Latina from the Dominican Republic. And so that was just published in both English and Spanish. My chapter is
Mhm.
called
Wow.
Radical Self-Care. I'm also a writer, creative writer. I'm working on a creative young adult novel, which I hope to finish this summer,
Wow.
loosely based on my life. But it's about a young lady from the Bronx, and it's a coming of age story. Another role
Mhm.
that I play is that I'm a clinical supervisor at a mental health clinic where I work with social work students as well as LMHC students and limited license folks as they are on their journey to become licensed clinicians. And I very much enjoy that work. And the most important role that I play is that of a mom of two
Mhm.
teenagers. One is a sophomore in college, the other is a sophomore in high school. And I'm also a wife, a sibling, a lover of life. I am also a yoga teacher, instructor, mindfulness practitioner, and facilitator. And so I enjoy being in community with people that are striving towards development to be their better selves.
I love that, Cindy. That's amazing. You are wearing so many hats, and all of your hats, it sounds like they all like really impact communities and individuals, and also as a mom and a wife, right? Like obviously impacting your family and community, but the other ones also like really, really connect so broadly and in such a caring and thoughtful way. I think that that's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And you also have a YouTube channel, right?
Yes. Oh, I forgot to share that I'm also a podcast host. So Nancy and
Wow.
I have a podcast called Self-Care to Success in 15 Minutes or Less, where we
Oh, I
take
love it.
turns and we
Mhm.
share a self-care tip in 15 minutes or less. And each episode centers on a specific topic. We have 2 seasons up. We're working on our third season. And something that I started during the quarantine is a channel called Candid Conversation. So if you Google on YouTube, you'll find it. And it's a channel where I began to interview people, common day people from various professions and roles
Mhm.
in their lives, and where they share their stories of triumph, where they've dealt with challenges, obstacles, and situations, and they share a tip of how they've been able to grow through their various situations. And I felt that we heal in community and we heal with stories. But
Mhm.
I feel like I do anyway. And so what I
Yeah,
found is that in hearing people's narratives and stories, I get inspired, and I wanted to be able to provide that to the community, especially during such a difficult time in the last 2 years that people have had, sort of being isolated and being restricted in many ways. And so I think I've interviewed, I don't know, 15 to 20 people, I'm not sure.
that's
But now
amazing.
it's once a month that I've been
Yeah,
interviewing folks. In fact, really enjoy that. And I found that people get so much out of sharing their stories. And many people on
yeah.
the channel have, that's the first time that they've shared that particular story.
I love it. I love it. And I know I told you earlier, I'm going to be begging you to get on your channel, your show. So look for my email. Okay.
I love it. I can't wait.
So terrific. So I want to ask you, and I mean, I feel like you are doing so much and you're having such a huge impact in so many different ways. In your words, how are you making history now in terms of like all of this that you're doing?
But what I'm doing is I'm really challenging myself, Amira. This in and of itself, being interviewed and recorded and it being sort of out there in the world, for me is
Yeah.
actually a challenge. Most people meet me and they say, "Oh, you're an extrovert. What do you mean?" And so I've decided that I'm going to be the best me that I could be, even if that means that I'm challenging myself. I was working at Columbia University for 12 years. And when I
Mm-hmm.
received my doctorate in urban education, I decided that what I wanted to do was really influence and impact the future social work leaders of tomorrow. And so in doing
Mm-hmm.
that, of course, that didn't come without sacrifice. It was taking a pay cut. It was choosing a job that was going to demand me to travel extensively. It
Mm-hmm.
also changed everything about what I had been doing in my life, because having an administrative job for 12 years that I knew the role well was very easy to do, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes we get complacent. So I feel like I've made history by making changes and making decisions that challenge me. I also
Yeah.
decided that I would start supervising clinicians. It was something that I had been wanting to do, but I was scared to do it. I wasn't sure I had the skill set, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'll give it a try. And I realized that I actually love it.
Wonderful.
And
Oh,
I also realized that I'm good at it, right? And that
yeah.
I'm able to support people that are supporting people. And so that's
Mhm.
something that I'm looking to actually challenge myself even a step further. And I'll talk to you about that offline.
Yeah.
And so I decided during the time that I was home that I would grow deeper in my spiritual practice, grow
Wow.
deeper in my physical practice. So I became a yoga instructor, and being a
Mhm.
yoga instructor really for myself and my family, because I haven't branched out and started sort of
Mhm.
teaching classes yet. I'm looking to create something soon where I
Mhm.
incorporate the social work, the mindfulness facilitation. I also decided that I would become a mindfulness facilitator. I took that course during quarantine and
Amazing.
realized that I love it. It supported me in my body, mind, and spirit wellness. I realized that, I do the work because I need the work, and that's why I do the work. And I say that all the
Yeah.
time when I'm facilitating workshops. Like, don't think for a minute that I have a perfect life. I
Mhm.
do the work because I need the work. I mean, when my mother passed away in
Mhm.
April of 2021,
Mhm.
and of course, we're still grieving as a family. I'm still grieving as a family, but I feel that the gift that
Yeah.
I was able to gift myself prior to it happening is that I do have a regular, rigorous self-care practice. And that
Wonderful.
continues to sustain me. And that is
Mhm.
making history, Amira, because we
Yeah.
know, in our history and trajectory of women of color, we were not allowed to rest. I hardly ever saw my mother
Exactly.
rest. My mother was
Yeah.
a homemaker, and she was also an entrepreneur in her home. She
Wow.
sold linens, and she sold curtains and
Oh my
blankets
goodness.
and towels.
Mhm.
And she was always busy, right? And in
Mhm.
fact, we laugh, me and my siblings, that whenever we're like resting, my mother, she would say, "What are you doing? Did you clean your room? Did you do this?" So
Right.
I decided that I was going to change that trajectory and change that
Mhm.
cycle in my family. So we
Mhm.
center self-care, we center
Mhm.
rest. My kids call me out on it because sometimes I do get into my mommy mode. And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What are you doing?" They're like, I have spring break. And so I don't need to do
Right.
my homework." I'm like, "Okay, you're right." So
Right,
that's
right.
the way that I'm making history. I'm challenging myself professionally. I'm challenging myself personally, and I'm resting, Amira.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I feel like you brought up such a key point, right? As women of color, it's like go, 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 go. You stop for a second, no, get up and go. So I love the fact that you are doing that. And you have your professional roles and business and everything that you're doing, but you're also, so you're striving in that way, but you're also saying, you know what? I'm also striving to make sure I continuously take care of myself and take really good care of myself. And I
Yeah.
think that that's also like terrific and amazing and wonderful. So, Cindy, what's important to you about the work that you do?
What's important to me is that I'm authentically me, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I walk in the door, I am Doctora Cindy Bautista-Thomas
Mm-hmm.
from the Boogie Down Bronx, right? And you can hear it in the
Mm-hmm.
way that I talk. You can hear it in the way that I swag. I bring humor into
I
who I
love it.
am, whether I'm
Mm-hmm.
facilitating a training for a corporate environment, or I'm in the
Mm-hmm.
classroom with the bachelor level students, the master level students, or, yesterday I facilitated a workshop called "Can You See the Vision for Women Entrepreneurs in New Jersey?" And I feel that being authentically me allows people to tap into their vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
And to be truly happy in this profession and to avoid burnout, we have
Yeah.
to tap into our authentic selves. And it's not
Absolutely.
easy, right, Amira? Because
Yeah.
depending on what structures we've been a part of, depending on what our life history has looked like,
Mm-hmm.
depending on
Mm-hmm.
our intergenerational traumas, right? It could be an uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
And I encourage everywhere that I go that people seek what it is that they need to be their best selves. For some of us, it's
Mm-hmm.
therapy. For others of us, it's spiritual communities. For
Mm-hmm.
others, it's spending time in nature, right? And
Yeah.
so tapping into that authenticity will create better clinicians, better managers, better
Mm-hmm.
creators of organizations and institutions that are here to really empower people to move social justice agendas forward. But if we're not our authentic selves, then people lose out in those gifts, Amira.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a great message. And I also have to apologize for not introducing you as Dr. Cindy Bautista Thomas, right? Like I introduced you as Mrs., thinking about, oh, she's a married woman. Let me make sure. But no, it's Doctor. So thank you, Dr. Thomas, for that. I
Thank you.
appreciate you.
That's
Dr.
okay.
Bautista Thomas for that. I really appreciate you. So I feel like your work helps others in so many ways. What stands out to you about how your work helps others?
Hmm. What stands out to me is when people have these aha moments about
Mhm.
patterns of behaviors, ways of being that they discover are not working for them. Like, I
Mhm.
love when after a workshop, just yesterday, someone came up to me and we did a visioning exercise of sort of where you see yourself in your next chapter, right? And
Mhm.
someone came up to me and said, "You know what? I I don't know how to cook. I've always bought food, and I in your exercise I realized that I want to learn how to cook and I want to take care of
Mhm.
myself in that way, right?" I also talk a lot about self-love, right? And
Mhm.
self-worth and really connecting with the love of who you are and what you're looking to contribute into the world. And so for
Mhm.
me, that has been a tremendous gift that I feel that I've been able to offer others, is that introspection into like
Mhm.
who you are, and releasing the judgment around that, right?
Mhm.
And I'm able to do that because I've had to do that. right? Like I've had to do that in so many roles that I've played, where I found that when I was able to release those judgments and really tap into where the areas where I get to say, oh, that's not working. Why did I think that was a good idea? Right. And, and then just shifting and pivoting, right? I feel like that has worked for me. And so, and I speak from a place of my personal experience. That's all I could speak from, right, Amira? So,
Yeah.
so I found that has been such a gift, and that's why I continue to do that work, right? When a student is in my classroom and I talk about, injustices and inequities, and then there's a white student that says, I've never had to think about who I am and how I move in the world. And just yesterday I noticed X, Y, and Z. And I'm really looking to consider like what is going to be my role in the world
Yeah.
as a
That's
social worker, right? So those are
yeah.
examples of ways that I feel that I've been able to create impact.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's terrific. And that's like life-changing for them, just having that experience with you. I think that's really phenomenal. So Cindy, this is the last question, right? So in terms and like with considering confidentiality, right? Because we're social workers, we're always thinking about maintaining confidentiality, especially if it's an individual, but how have you made a difference in terms of like a story that you can share, like the story that you feel comfortable sharing about how you've impacted an individual, a community, a family, a program, an organization, a group of people, just any way that you feel like you'd like to share about how you've made an impact?
I'm going to talk about, there's this organization, I'm not going to say their name,
Mm-hmm.
but they have hired us for the last 3 or 4 years to do various programming. And they asked us to come in. It was in 2021. And, we were still in the pandemic mode, but we were in person. And, we were all wearing masks. And we
Yeah.
had a healing circle.
Mm.
And there was challenges around, the stigma of COVID, those that have gotten COVID, those who were living different restrictive lives, and how folks were communicating because they had been remote. Some people had to do in person. Some people had never stopped
Yeah.
since the pandemic. So there was just a lot of challenges in this organization. And it was the first time that this organization actually asked for a healing space, which I
Mm.
absolutely love facilitating.
Yeah. Mm.
And there was so much power in the space, Amira. And I am an empath, so I feel it all. I connect with what's in the room. I pivot
Mm-hmm.
when I feel something shifting in the room,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that I'm providing what's needed and wanted, right, in the
Mm-hmm.
space. And there was something that happened where, we pivoted in a certain way, and there were tears, Amira. There
Wow.
was excitement, there was aha moments. And then afterwards, we got feedback from organizations that it was definitely what was needed right at the time.
Mm.
And so I
Yeah.
use that as an example because I remember thinking to myself, I've done healing circles before, but not in that kind of context with an
Mm-hmm.
organization
Mm-hmm.
and a multiple people where we weren't going to see each other regularly, right? And
Yeah.
so for us to have had that opportunity to work with them in that way, to
Mm-hmm.
provide that healing space, and people were able to share vulnerably about their
Yeah.
experiences, and that you saw and felt that immediate release afterwards.
Wow. That's
That it was like
powerful.
this bonding that occurred like in real time. That to
Mm.
me was just such a powerful moment because it spoke
Mm-hmm.
to like the human spirit, right? That we
Mm-hmm.
all got something that we're grappling with. And that
Yes.
when we're able to share in a space where we feel heard, where we feel that it's safe, we're able to heal in community. And so for me, that
Mm.
was just like the epitome of, this is what I'm talking about. Like, we heal in community.
Yeah. I
Everyone was
love.
kind of, doing their own thing on the side or within their departments, but it was like these various departments that came together to heal in community. Right.
I love that. Thank you so much. So thank you, Doctora Cindy Bautista-Thomas. I really appreciate having you today and continue your amazing work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Amir, and I wish you much success in all the amazing things that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.